Hafaday, and welcome to another episode of My Story. I'm your host, Janella Carrera. Welcome to the Westin Resort Guam, where we'll be interviewing some wonderful people with the Edward M. Calvo Cancer Foundation. First, we'll have Marie Benito, who's with their Cancer Life support group, and we'll also have Dr. Lily Perez, who is a behavioral health therapist. And then after that, we'll have a cancer warrior and a cancer survivor who will share their experience in the help that they received from the Edward M. Calvo Cancer Foundation. So stay tuned, we'll be right back and we'll get straight to it. Hafaday, and welcome back to My Story. I'm your host, Janella Carrera, and for this episode we have some special guests joining us for the first time, Miss Marie Benito with the Edward M. Calvo Cancer Foundation, and Dr. Lily Perez, also with the foundation, a provider with the foundation. Thank you, ladies, for joining us in this episode, and we're really happy to have EMC join us for the first time in the 3 to 4 years that we've been doing this. So thank you so much. So to get started, I wanted to find out a little bit more about the foundation. You know, it's sort of a household name in Guam. Everybody knows it. It's the first, right? One of the first, if not the first, cancer foundation here in Guam. And so a lot of people are familiar with it, but just to kind of get an idea of what the mission is behind the foundation and the history behind it.
So the Edward M. Calvo Cancer Foundation was started in 2004. It was upon the death of my late uncle, Edward Calvo. And the primary purpose is to alleviate the financial burden on families who suffer from the diagnosis of cancer. So they provide financial assistance in roughly $750 once every 12-month period.
I see.
For those who have the cancer certification or diagnosis. In addition, they have several fundraisers. Their Art and Wine Festival that assists in alleviating some of the financial
right.
costs of treatment.
Right, right. And so it's been around for 14, 15 years now.
Exactly.
Like I said, household name. Everybody knows the Edward M. Calvo Foundation. A lot of organizations have popped up since. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about the support group and the circle of care that the foundation provides. So I understand that you're the program coordinator for the circle of care. Circle of Life.
Yes. So the Circle of Care program, we applied for a grant under the University of Guam Cancer Trust Fund through the Edward M. Calvo Cancer Foundation, and this is our third year. Initially, we provided under the program meditation sessions, yoga, jewelry making, card making. We had a retreat once a year. We actually produced the book.
Oh, wow.
It's called Ordinary People, Cancer Warriors, and it's 12 local cancer survivors who have been generous enough to share their stories. And so this was available to cancer centers as well as grant recipients from the foundation.
Amazing. Okay.
And so here we are in our third year, and we've had Dr. Lily Perez assist us in the support group program specifically.
Right, yeah. And so I understand that the support group started about 2-3 years ago. Can you tell us what the support group is all about, what the mission is?
So it started as part of the retreat, as Marie was sharing. And in addition to all of the breakout sessions that they had, they were wanting to offer more like a clinical setting for people who wanted to share more about their feelings and get have a sense of support from one another. And so we tried a session, and the feedback that we got was positive. So we did it again the following year, and more people attended. Same thing, positive. And I think we might have done it for 3 years. And then this funding opportunity came, and so we decided, okay, let's offer it. So it was actually at the retreat that we solicited our first group of participants. And we said, well, if this is really something you want to continue, please sign up. And at the time, we had 4 sessions that were scheduled. about this time last year. We left it open initially, meaning people could sign up who weren't at the retreat.
Okay.
And then once we started our sessions, then we closed the group because it was really important for us that the members who were participating felt like it was safe.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And
That's very important.
Yes. And so we're doing the same thing again this year.
How many participants did you have in the first session or the retreat, and
Right.
then moving on to the first session with the multiple multiple days?
There were more people at the retreats than there were at the actual sessions.
I see.
Yeah, I think at one point I want to say we had about 20 some people in the retreats.
Oh,
yeah, as I
wow.
said, they were growing with each year. We would have more and more participants.
I see.
Yeah, and I think, I think maybe the bigger issue for us and myself as a behavioral health provider is folks don't really like to talk about it.
Right.
They want to, but there's also a fear associated with talking about it. And so there's also this vulnerability, like for many of the cultures that are present on the island, this is not the kind of thing that you talk about.
Right.
So it kind of runs against the grain.
I see. I see. I understand that with a diagnosis of cancer, that the patient and the family, the caregivers, they also go through some, behavioral challenges, some mental health challenges. A lot of the people that I've interviewed on the show have expressed, suffering some form of depression, and often would need some type of counseling.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy to hear that with the support group, you have someone who's, qualified, certified in behavioral health. How were you able to forge this partnership with Dr. Lily?
So initially, we wanted to make sure that there was a professional in place to facilitate these sessions because, as Dr. Lily had shared, you open up a wound when you invite people to a support group. So if a crisis arises, there needs to be a professional who can assist in managing that. And so we were lucky to get Dr. Lily, who is a behavioral health specialist, and it's not for everybody. Support group, you have to be ready to share your story, and it may not be the right time. So we're seeing more and more people gravitate and want to become a part of a support group. There are many other issues, though, that it's caregiver and patient included.
Right.
Most times you would separate the two. So we're hoping that in the future we're able to separate, or by cancer particular, so they can share more similar or commonalities amongst their the impact of cancer on them.
Right. You're right. Yeah, and Jessica mentioned earlier in the States, there are support groups that sometimes just focus on a certain type of cancer, or maybe one for caregivers. But here, in the beginning stages of support group, offering of care here in Guam, that may not be available yet. But that is something that you hope to
We hope to look into, and there's also, we have ages 18 to probably mid-60s in our group, and so because there's so few younger cancer patients, we don't have one cancer support group just for the youth, but we're hoping that we could meet the needs, generally speaking, in this one particular support group.
Do you know, based on the sessions that you've had over the last 2 to 3 years, is there like a specific cancer that's more common that you see amongst the people who participate in the support groups? For example, are there more breast cancer warriors and survivors? Maybe throat cancer?
It is varied. We have some that are extremely rare, but maybe the last one we had more folks who were dealing with breast cancer.
Breast cancer.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I see. I had a couple of guests on our show who talked about wanting to actually create their own support group, or be involved in a support group, because for them, at least for them, it was something that they wanted to be a part of. And I understand that some of them may be somewhat involved in this circle of care now, which I'm really glad to hear that. Do you often get inquiries from people in the community about support group, or where they can go to get assistance, whether it's financial or emotional support?
I think now we're seeing a greater need for that.
I think, so my primary workplace is actually at IHP Medical Group.
Right.
And so it's interesting that you would phrase the question that way, because the ones who are coming in for depression. Yes. And so once I start working with them, sometimes it's associated with dealing with the change, like finding out, or sometimes it's dealing with the loss. And so it's really bereavement.
I see.
Yes. But one of the sessions that we really try to focus on is dealing with that loss, like dealing with grief, understanding what that process is like.
I
So it is a topic we do want to bring up, and we have brought up.
I see.
Yes.
So I'm going to, one of my last questions, if you can talk about, based on your observations from the both of you, since, beginning this circle of care, and the people that have come through your doors and participated, what do you think is, how is this benefiting, the participants, the families, the caregivers, the island, the community?
Well, I think from where I sit, it gives them permission to acknowledge their pain, and to know that whatever the outcome is, that they're supported, and there's an element of dignity that one needs to have through the process, right? Also, it gives them this venue, because many are very spiritual, and it gives them the venue that they can share and pray and commune together with that common sense of, or that common bond, that connection, without the fear of being like embarrassed or humiliated, or to feel exposed and further vulnerable. Yes.
I think the beauty is when we've offered both the support care group and the other activities, you can either choose to talk about your story and cancer, or you can work and the conversation, it serendipitously gets into the talk of cancer, but you're doing jewelry making, you're doing card making, and so you're sharing with others with similar issues, but some are ready to talk directly about it. Others kind of may feel more comfortable just being with others.
Just being with others.
Right.
So you don't necessarily have to expose all of that or divulge.
Until you're ready.
Until you're ready. That's amazing. I'm glad that they don't feel pressured to have to share everything that they've gone through. So.
We work with themes for the sessions, so that you don't have to feel like you need to be all over the place.
Right.
Yeah, and we try to utilize play therapy so that it's not as confrontive.
I see.
Yeah, and a little bit more engaging.
Okay.
Would it be okay to share, so folks who are interested, they could call the Edward M. Calvo Foundation?
Okay, sure. Yeah, if you can just give us the phone number.
Sure. You do the phone number, and I'll do the...
They can call 472-8654 and just mention that they are interested in registering for the support care group.
Okay. Yeah, and then the next couple sessions that we have are on February 1st, the 15th, March 1st, and March 15th, as well as the 29th. All sessions start at 6, and we're down at the Payless corporate office.
Okay, well, ladies, thank you again so much for joining us in this episode of My Story. And I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope that your support group really expands so that more people will want to be involved in it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right, well, we'll be right back. Stay with us. Hafaday, and welcome back to My Story again. I'm your host, Janella Carrera, and in this segment of our episode, we're joined by a cancer warrior and a cancer survivor who both have benefited from the Edward M. Calvo Cancer Foundation. First, we have Francine Clement. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
And then we have Susanna Sam. Thank you, ladies, for joining us on this episode of My Story. So earlier we were able to speak with some of the people behind the Edward M. Calvo Cancer Foundation. They talked about the support and the care group that they provide, and I understand that both you ladies have been a part of this care group.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So can you, I'm going to start with you, Francine. I'm going to go right to left,
All right.
or left to right. what type of cancer were you diagnosed with, and what has your journey been like?
Okay, I was diagnosed in 2016 with stage 4 urachal cancer. It's actually been a roller coaster. I think most cancer patients would call it that. I had it successfully removed, was told that I was all clear, and then 6 months later it had come back and spread to my lungs,
Oh, wow.
my liver, my spine. And I was told I had to leave Island because I could be treated, and then I didn't move, unofficially move, but I went to Los Angeles to Cedars-Sinai for a year and a half for treatment, and I just came home 6 months ago.
Oh, okay.
And I'm continuing treatment here.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
And what type of is it a combination of chemo and
Chemotherapy.
radiation?
I can't do radiation because of where the
I see.
tumors are.
I see. And I understand that the cancer that you were diagnosed with is an extremely rare cancer. If you can just talk about that.
There's less than 600 people in the world that's ever been diagnosed with urachal cancer. I'm the only patient on Guam. There's one more lady who was diagnosed with urachal cancer, but that was in Texas, and she moved to Guam after.
Oh, okay.
So I got to meet her.
Oh, she moved to Guam?
Yes.
Is she from here?
No, her husband is a doctor here.
Oh,
And
okay.
so she was my husband's student at the university, and she found out I had urachal cancer, so we gave each other high fives because we're not alone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it must have felt so
Oh.
good to connect with someone
Yes.
who understands what
Yes.
you're going through.
We hugged it out. We were just like we had known each other forever, because I finally found somebody who knew, because breast cancer gets a lot of news, but our cancer you never
Right.
hear of.
Right, right. Only
It's
less than
rare.
600 people in the
Yeah.
entire world, 7.5 billion people.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it was amazing to finally find somebody who I can connect with.
Right, right. And the connection, not just somebody who's been diagnosed with a similar cancer,
Yeah.
but somebody who's now in Guam,
Yeah.
who has more ways of connecting with you than
Yes.
one,
Yes.
which, like you said, your husband was her teacher?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure a lot of our viewers are wondering, what is urachal cancer? I mean, like you said, it's so rare, you don't
So
hear about
rare.
it. But could you explain what it's?
So at birth, right, we have our umbilical cord is behind our umbilical cord is your urachus, and your urachus is supposed to dissipate inside the body, and mine did not. So that's rare enough, and then it became cancerous, and it's also a male dominant cancer. So for me to have it is like rare, rare, rare.
Right, right.
So, but I've been so fortunate that the doctors, every doctor that I dealt with, they're like, don't lose hope, we're gonna fight this. And it's really given me a lot of hope, and I've just been blessed with support. It's so hard to think, oh, I'm the only one, it's so rare, but when you have so many people supporting you and fighting with you, it's not, you don't feel that alone anymore.
Right, right, yeah. And as you mentioned, this type of cancer is so rare. So you didn't even know that it did not dissipate.
Yeah, I had no idea.
You had no idea until you got the diagnosis
Yes.
that you had cancer, and you were probably like, "What?"
Yeah. When the doctor told me, actually, I had gone 2 years with. It felt like a urinary tract infection, and doctors kept diagnosing me with it. And finally, I went to my doctor and I said, "Nope, you're right. I might have a UTI, but I'm telling you, I know my body, and there's something wrong. Run tests."
Right.
And so after 2 years of finding, we finally found it. But she told me I had urachal cancer, and I was like, breast cancer? Like, she's like, urachal. So she had to explain it to my
Right.
mom and myself, like, what is this?
Right, right.
But like I said, it's, I'm fighting. I'm fighting it as rare as it is. It's not gonna bring me down.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So glad to hear that.
Thank you.
And Susanna, can you said you were diagnosed with ovarian cancer, right?
Yes, ma'am,
How
that's
long
true.
ago was that when you were diagnosed?
I got diagnosed 2013,
Okay.
September, and no treatment until 2014.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
What took so long?
It's like the financial thing
I see.
issues.
There were a lot of financial
Yes,
issues. So
that-
I'm assuming you didn't have health care insurance at the time? when you were
yes,
diagnosed?
ma'am.
I see. Okay. And then so, but you did receive help from the Edward M.
EMC,
Calvo-
yes.
EMC. Okay.
That's true.
Okay.
Yes.
And so then 2014, you finally did receive treatment. What type of treatment did you get?
Um, on the September 2014, I got surgery. They removed the ovary, both ovary.
Both ovaries.
Actually, the right ovary is diagnosed. That's the one that.
I see.
Yes.
And so they removed both.
Yes, I didn't know that. So
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. And they, first of all, they, the reason why they found out when I went see doctor for, there's a weird pain here, and it was from my uterus. There's a cyst.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And
This is separate from what
separate.
you had in your ovary.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's when they found out that right ovary got diagnosed of
Oh,
yeah,
wow. So
cancer.
So on top of the cancer, so you had it started with a cyst.
No,
The
it's
pain.
yes,
The
the
pain,
pain,
yeah.
but it's not that's uterus.
Right, in the uterus.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they were trying to, work on your uterus and the cyst and that pain, then
They
they
found
found the cancer in your ovary, the right ovary.
The right ovary.
Wow.
So the doctor really want to remove the ovary right away, and I didn't know. I thought they're gonna remove the other uterus
Wow.
because that's it's gonna be later on
It could
become
right.
cancer.
It could turn into cancer. later
Cancer.
on.
So they only remove the ovaries without the cyst, without the uterus, and they didn't tell me that. So
Oh, so
after
they
all,
kept the uterus and removed both ovaries. I see.
so after all, they after the surgery, they told me that they didn't. There is no specialist to remove the uterus. So I asked to the referral to go somewhere there's specialist.
I see.
So I went to Philippines,
Okay.
and the doctor, my oncologist doctor, said you need to do the chemotherapy. So I said, may I go back to Guam to do the chemotherapy because there is no family. I
Right.
don't have family here to take care of me.
Right.
So he agreed with me, and I went back here, Guam, and I started chemotherapy December.
Of 2014.
And after I did 6 cycles chemotherapy, so after that I went back to Philippines and do the hysterectomy.
Oh, okay. So
So
then
that's-
you eventually
yeah.
got the hysterectomy. You had your
Yes, ma'am.
uterus removed. Okay. When you went back to the Philippines, did they also test to see if there were any traces of cancer left after you had completed the chemo sessions?
Yes, my oncologist doctor said after when I do every the check, and he said nothing can see that it's like leftover cancer or something.
Right.
And he recommend me to come back to do the annually checkup. So I follow his instructor, and
And you've
I
been
am-
so
yeah,
you haven't
every
had
year.
any. They haven't found any cancer in your body
No more.
since. So every year you go back for your annual, and they don't find it.
They don't find
That must be such a relief to,
Yes.
you know, to hear that
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
there's no cancer, no trace
That's
of
true.
cancer.
Very true.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what can you say about, you know, being a part of the support group? How has it helped you get through what you, you know, what you're going through?
The individual in the support group team, they really encourage me. Their what they said and the way they treat us. It's really make me strong and courage, enlighten me. They really are helpful.
That's wonderful. And Francine, if you can share.
I think it's really, I think the word is encouraging. I mean, you feel so encouraged to see so many, there are warriors, and there are survivors, and we're mixed. So it also gives people like me hope that, you know,
Exactly.
we might be cancer-free
Yes,
one day.
yes.
You know, and it, I mean, you see it all over the island, but when you're sitting in a small circle and you're able to discuss it, it's just kind of a beautiful thing. And you know, Dr. Lily, you know, she's just a facilitator. She's there and she's not taking over the conversation.
Right.
She just helps us so that we can share our feelings with one another. And there's no, we don't feel forced to share either, right? We
Right.
She goes, who wants to speak next? And sometimes the first time we were all like,
Not me.
please choose somebody to, you know. And then, of course, one brave soul goes, and then another, and then
Right.
we all end up sharing. But yeah,
It's wonderful.
It is. It's wonderful.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
and
you.
sharing
Thank
your
you.
story with us. I'm really happy that you know, you are cancer-free at this point, and I wish you, you know, all the best.
Yes.
And I hope that you will also have that day where they say
Yes.
you're cancer-free as
Yes.
well. So
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
all right, and thank you again for joining us in this episode of My Story. Thank you to the Westin Resort Guam for providing us this beautiful venue to film our episode. I'd also like to give a shout out to Jezreel. She was supposed to join us in this episode. You might remember her. She was one of our guests in the show in the past, and she was supposed to be here today. So a little shout out to her.
Yes.
Sorry you couldn't be with us, but maybe next time we can have you on our show once again. And again, thank you to Westin, thank you to the Edward M. Calvo Cancer Foundation, and we'll have more details about their upcoming support group sessions right here on My Story. So if you want to be a part of it or just inquire about it, we'll have those details for you. So again, thank you for joining us on this episode of My Story. I'm your host, Janella Carrera. Good night.
Shout out.